Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Power Your Campaigns with Predictive Data Analytics. My name is Dustin Smith and I'm a Product Marketing Manager at Tableau Software. We are super excited today to welcome both BigML as well as AKQA joining us on this webinar today to talk specifically about the power of BigML and the predictive analytics that it can help power your data with and the decisions you can make and how that transitions fantastically right into Tableau. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping issues. Want to let everyone know we will be doing Q&A today. A big part of these webinars and a big reason so many of our attendees love them is because we want to interact with you. We want you to ask questions about Tableau and about BigML and about how customers, like AKQA are using it. So in the WebEx panel at the top of your screen or wherever that might be, there's a Q&A box. Please feel free to ask questions all throughout the webinar. We'll actually be addressing those at the end of the webinar. We're going to leave a chunk of time. And if for any reason we don't have the opportunity to ask that question, we will be following up afterwards. So again, welcome to today's webinar. We are recording this and this will be sent out afterwards. So don't worry about missing a second if you need to run to the bathroom or get a cup of coffee. Today's webinar is sponsored by both BigML and Tableau Software with the goal of helping people see and understand their data, but especially on the BigML side, helping people to grasp at the individual level, right, and empower people to use predictive analytics. If you want to join the conversation today on Twitter, we're using the hashtag Predictive, so feel free to tweet at us and as well as talk about what questions you want to ask or things like that. You can also tweet directly at BigML, COM, or at Tableau. So today's speakers, like I said, my name is Dustin Smith and I'm your host. I'm Product Marketing Manager here at Tableau. We're also joined by G Scott Stukey, who is a Senior Analyst at AKQA, and then finally Andrew Shikyar, who is the VP of Marketing and Business Development at BigML. We're extremely excited and very grateful that everyone could be on the call today. And I believe with that, I'm actually going to welcome Andrew Shikyar to the presentation and let him take over.
Thanks, Dustin, and thanks first to Tableau for hosting this webinar and also to all of you on the line for joining today. As a Tableau technology partner, BigML has really enjoyed working with Tableau and integrating our platforms, and I'm really excited for all of you to see the joint solution in action. As such, I'm actually going to shut up in a minute so we can let G Scott show everyone exactly how he's using BigML alongside Tableau. But first, next slide, please. What is BigML? BigML is a hosted platform that was created to let users of all skill sets find actionable and predictive insights from their data. As we'll see shortly, BigML is easy to use, very powerful, and frankly, a lot of fun to use thanks to our visualizations. I think this last point is something that should really resonate with all of you Tableau users who see data analysis as more of a passion than a chore. At the core of our value proposition is a supervised workflow and highly intuitive interface which hides the complexity of machine learning in an enjoyable and cost-effective manner. But enough preamble. I'd like to turn things over now to G Scott Stukey of AKQA. G Scott?
Hi, everyone. I'm G Scott Stukey. I'm currently a data supervisor at AKQA, and I'll be going over how I've used Tableau and BigML, as well as the integration of the two tools together to help do analyses on behalf of my clients. So about me, I'm an analytics supervisor at AKQA. I've worked about 7 years in the space, really love the direction that everything's going and how Tableau is kind of taking over. And my recent focus has been in media analytics. I work on behalf of a Fortune 500 retail client. We are tasked with running their digital display media campaigns. And the objective that we have been given with the campaigns is to both change perception of the brand as well as to drive purchase intent. The key data sources that we use on a day-to-day level are ad impression and conversion data from our ad servers, site analytics data from traffic being driven by our campaigns, and for the perception and qualitative KPIs, we use brand surveys, which will be the focus of today's data set. A little about brand surveys for those of you not familiar. They are exposed to the user when they see one of our ads and they ask about a user's perception about a brand, be it their brand favorability, attributes about the brand, or their propensity to purchase. And a little about the data set, there are a couple different types of questions. There are checkboxes, which can be a binary 1-0 answer, such as do you shop for clothes based on affordability. Some of the questions are 1 through 7 Likert scales, with 1 being unlikely to purchase and 7 being very likely. Our goal is to try to drive 6 and 7s. And in addition, some radio buttons where they will be coded. So one question I want to call out, because I have a feeling it's going to be very important in our data set, is when was the last time a person has shopped from the following brands? And the lower the score, the less recent they have shopped, all the way up to they have shopped within the past month. The raw response data is in a nice CSV. I've done a couple of column header changes to make it really easy to port into Tableau. And the data comes in a combination of a lot of numeric fields, as well as a couple of category fields, such as the user's income, their gender, as well as the campaign that they were exposed to. It's not a huge data set by any means, a little over 1,000 responses, but super useful, and we can get a lot of insight out of it. So time to do a little demo. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So right now, I've preloaded the data set on behalf of this webinar. I think it was a little useful. I did a little bit of house cleaning, changing some of the measures to dimensions, changing some of the default aggregations. Of course, you should do this with every data set you load into Tableau. One thing you see here
Hey, G Scott,
is...
this is Dustin. Sorry, it looks like we're not quite able to see your screen. I think I pressed the wrong button there. Can you check again and see if you can share your desktop?
Sure. Apologies. It's not start my video?
No, it should be, if you click the WebEx on the taskbar, there should be a big button on the white screen that pops up that says Share My Desktop.
I'm not seeing it.
Not seeing that. All right, 1 second. Apologies, folks. This is how you know it's a live demonstration. All right, G Scott, I'm going to reissue you permission controls. Just 1 second.
Okay. Okay. Okay, kind of looks like everything's working.
There we go. You should be looking good. We're seeing your desktop just fine. Apologies about that, folks.
Yep. Definitely a live demo when things don't work out, and hopefully the rest is kind of smooth. So one thing I've done with the data set is to preload it and make sure all my aggregations are correct, set dimensions and measures as I wanted, and begin exploring the data set. Right here, you can kind of see people's responses across all of our campaigns and their propensity to purchase, their answers to how likely am I to purchase from the brand in the next 30 days. I've done a little coloring and a pre-prep, but this is rather easy to do yourself. So what I'm going to do is recreate that. So I want to look at the number of records, and I would like to color by their propensity, their score here, and I am going to change this to a discrete, going to change this to a dimension, discrete after, and then I want to go ahead and label, and over here, instead of the number of records, quick table calculation % of total, and voila. I now have a tab that I can shoot over to my coworkers and show them the performance of the campaigns that they've been tasked to plan. What's really nice is if I want to do some ad hoc and see how different campaigns performed, I can go down, drag out my campaign pill, bring it over to the rows, and now I have the performance of the various campaigns. You can see that the promotional campaign has done a better job at driving people to purchase than, say, an influencer campaign, but that's okay for the brand. For this particular brand, you can also see that income plays a little bit of a role. And lastly, we can look at their recency to purchase, and then I'll go into the BigML analysis. So if I go into shopper, brand, bring it out to the column, then their intent score, you can quickly see that the average score for people who have shopped more recently within the last month is much higher than someone who has not shopped at the brand before. You'll see why I show this in a couple moments. So with that, I'm going to move on to BigML to do some additional analysis. Tableau is great for exploring. BigML is where we're doing some of our machine learning analysis and leveraging that in order to gain additional insights. So this is the default interface. When you log in, you will see this with all your data sources that you have uploaded or connected to. What I am going to do is go over here and upload a CSV. So I will go to my desktop. Apologies. Desktop, BigML, survey data 2. Usually the data set gets loaded really quickly, so right now it's uploading into BigML system. There we go. CSV. There we go. That's how it usually loads. So we have uploaded our survey data into the BigML system, and we now have a data source that we can make various data sets and models from. What I'm going to do is click into the data source, and you drill down into a nice view of your data set. You have all of the names of your fields. BigML automatically classifies all of them, whether they be a categorical field, such as the user's gender, or if they're a numeric field, such as whether or not a person views the brand as a brand for someone like me. We can then go and click one-click data set, and we now have a data set that we can work off of. What's nice about this view, when you drill down into a data set, is you see a nice little distribution of how your values kind of fall. So for user gender, we can quickly see that females outnumber males by an order of magnitude of 3 to 1. We see a distribution of user income as well as campaign. What I'm going to do here is, because our brand is focused on a younger target, I am going to filter my data set by the user age. And I only care about people who are aged between 18 and 34. I'll go ahead and call this filtered 18 to 34. What that does is it creates another data set that is filtered. And you can see I now have 691 records, and the age distribution is as such. You can do a couple other things. You can add fields to the data set and do quick calculations off of your existing variables, as well as create a training and test split set so that you can validate any models you create. What I'm going to do is go ahead and normally I might do a one-click model, which allows you to create a model with just one click. But I'm going to go in and configure the model just a little bit before I do. The objective field is the field that you're trying to predict, and what I want to know is true or false whether or not a person is going to purchase in the next 30 days. I'm going to go down here, go to my variables, and one thing I'm going to do is go all the way down. And what's great about this tool is you can very quickly include or not include various fields that you want in your data set. For here, because I have multiple ways we've asked the same question, I want to make sure that I do not include them because it might skew my results. Okay, I'm ready to create a model. And go. So with one click, I was able to create a decision tree model based on my data. A decision tree, for those of you unfamiliar with them, are ways that is an algorithm that naturally finds splits in the data and creates rules. So up top, we have the entirety of the data set. You can see that we have 691 instances, with 509 of them being no, I am not going to shop, and 182 being yes, I will shop. And up at the top, you see that the prediction path shows that shopper brand, the recency of when they shopped, is one of the ways that people naturally split. When I go to the right, I see that the prediction path shopper brand greater than 3 gives me a different split. I now have 248 instances of data, with 95 being 0 and 153 being yes, I will. So just by knowing this top node, I've split my data into people who have a rather high, above 55, above about a 60-ish percent propensity to purchase, versus low. You can see here that the majority of people who haven't shopped with the brand recently are not likely to shop in the next 30 days. And you can drill all the way down. So you can see here, go down more. The next important is attribute to recommend, whether or not they've shopped at a competitor, and so forth. One thing that BigML allows you to do is go back to the data set really quickly and say I want to change my model. And instead of doing the true false, I want to predict their entire score. I will go back down. I will remove the true false variable, and I will once again create a new model. So we're now predicting the score, whether or not they said 1 through 7. And up top, you can see now that we have a numeric field, we get a prediction. So the average score was a 3.93, and if they shopped with the brand more recently, in this case less than a year, their propensity goes up to a 5.28, versus people who haven't are a 2.64. So already we have a lot of information about our data set that we may not have known otherwise. What's great is that the decision tree crunches down all the possible combinations, so you quickly see what that default split is, so you don't have to go exploring your data set all day and spend your time doing other things. One nice thing is that you get a model summary report, and when you click that, you get a view of the field importance. A great byproduct of decision trees is the fact that you can see what fields are driving the variance in your target variable. So in this case, a lot of the performance is driven by the recency of them shopping at our brand. Nearly 50% of the variance is explained just by knowing that one variable about someone. This has actually led to the brand taking a viewpoint of looking at their customer segments and then targeting their media differently to different customer segments based on the last time they were shopping with the store. In addition, we see that brand favorability is highly predictive of their propensity to purchase. So what we've done is actually use this information, and we can now just ask brand favorability and whether or not they view the brand favorably, and that is a good predictor of purchase intent. We can then grade our different partners just by one question as opposed to answering an entire survey's worth of questions. If I click into the summary, you quickly see that the data distribution of our values as well as our predicted distribution, which goes down more granular than the data does. And one nice thing is that the field importance, we can copy and paste from right here. So I'm going to do this and pull this back for a little bit. Paste this into Excel for a moment. Great. One great part about BigML is the ability to download this model. So now we have this model that predicts whether or not our target audience is likely to purchase. We can now download the model into any of our various languages. If we want to do some additional analysis in Python, we can go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do for today is click on the Tableau icon and take advantage of their seamless integration. So right off the bat, all you Tableau experts can see that this is just one large if-then formula. If is when we go all the way down, what we can do is copy this entire formula. Copy. I can then open up Tableau. Create a calculated field. I'm going to call this field predicted score. I'm going to paste the formula. It says my calculation is valid. So just with one quick paste, I was able to take an entire model and paste it into Tableau. I'll click OK. And now what I can quickly do is go in, find my predicted score, bring it into the column. I'll have to change this to an average. And voila, we now see that the model has an average predicted purchase intent score of a 3.572. And what I can go ahead and do is bring out the campaign. And the model is now available to us in Tableau to do additional analyses. Once again, we see the promotional campaign doing a better job than other campaigns. So that's the majority of my demonstration. One thing I do like to do is I'm going to go back to the field importance, do a little text to column. Give me one moment. Let me just see how I wrote it down. Variable. Okay. And really quickly, I can go and do additional analyses with that data set by copying from Excel and pasting directly into Tableau. What's beautiful is I've used this technique to, in the meeting, do additional analyses. And unfortunately, my computer seems to be having issues today. What I've done is I've copied and pasted data sets into Tableau and done additional analyses right in the meeting so that we can answer questions right then and there.
That's fantastic. So, thank you, G Scott. That's a really fun trick. I think I love it when people were able to at least speak to the power of doing things right inside the meeting. So I'm going to actually go ahead and take back presenter controls, and I think we've got a few more slides that you wanted to talk to you on the conclusion side. Is that correct?
Definitely.
Outstanding. All right. And I believe we are looking at the presentation right now. Is that correct?
It should be.
Excellent. So, all right. And the next slide we have there is the conclusionary slide that you wanted to talk to, correct?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
So what's beautiful is that with BigML and Tableau, we can use predictive modeling and predictive analytics to do advanced analysis on our data sets and be able to predict outcomes. We can also utilize predictive analytics to find out what the key drivers of performance are, even if they're not predicting additional outcomes. And with BigML's modeling and the seamless integration with Tableau, we're able to utilize this predictive model right in Tableau to do additional analyses. And what's great about BigML is the time spent needed to create a model is shrunk to just a few clicks. So I can actually leverage that model and communicate the insights with my colleagues to take action off of.
Fantastic. All right. So with that, G Scott, thank you so much for the presentation. And the power of handing predictive analytics to an individual person with domain expertise and then pairing that up with Tableau is absolutely fantastic. It blows my mind. It's just, you know, for those of us that are real data nerds and love to be able to grapple with data in real ways, that's truly the best thing in the world. I think at this point, what we'd really like to do is welcome Andrew back to the presentation and have him really discuss the predictive power that BigML brings to the table.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin, and thanks, G Scott. I thought that was super compelling. You know, as a software vendor, I can tell you that few things are more satisfying than seeing your product, your tool in action, especially when you can see and hear about how it's made someone's life so much easier as part of their daily job. Just to recap real quick on BigML before we turn to Q&A. BigML, we're actively disrupting the analytics market with our hosted machine learning platform, thanks to the attributes you see here on this chart. BigML is super accessible, super affordable, and also very extensible, thanks to the fact that everything you see in the interface is actually underpinned by a RESTful API. So who uses BigML? The next slide will show you this. You know, a whole bunch of people. Since our launch late in 2012, we've grown to support over 10,000 users who have deployed nearly 4 million predictive models on our platform. The users have come from companies large and small. On the small side, startups and ISVs like the fact that they can rely on our machine learning engine to easily add predictive logic to their company's offerings while maintaining their core focus on their particular value add or their domain expertise. Mid-sized companies tend to find BigML to be a more cost-effective approach for implementing machine learning and predictive analytics, often in lieu of building up an expensive data science infrastructure that, frankly, may be overkill for their requirements. On the larger side, larger companies are using BigML across the enterprise and in conjunction with their data science teams. This empowers more employees and groups within the company to deploy advanced analytics and also allow data scientists to focus on higher value work. So we're obviously not trying to put data scientists out of business, and we're trying to help them focus on their unique value add. As far as examples go, BigML is very much a horizontal platform, but we're seeing many common applications and use cases that are listed on the slide here. It spans marketing, healthcare, HR, ad tech, core operations, and many, many more areas. In fact, we just published a blog post today from a firm that's using BigML to predict box office returns for new movie releases. So it's a lot of fun working at BigML to hear about how our customers are using it, and there's a lot of innovative use cases that we keep on hearing about coming out of the woodworks. So with that, we can go to the next slide. Let me wrap up here, and then we can turn things back over to Dustin, who can moderate Q&A. If you want to learn more about BigML, please visit our website. You can sign up for a free account. I've also provided my contact information on the slide. We're very eager to find more companies that are interested in using the combined power of BigML and Tableau. So please do reach out to us today, or you can also, of course, ping your Tableau account manager. So Dustin, with that, I'll turn it back to you for the Q&A. And Dustin, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Fantastic. It's important to click the right buttons there. Andrew, thank you so much. And G Scott, again, thank you for that incredible demonstration. What I'd like to do now is we've actually got a fair amount of questions that have come in through the Q&A panel. And if you haven't submitted your question already and want to, please continue to do so. The first thing the first question that's come up, and it's one that was on my mind too, is for G Scott. And the question is really, leveraging the power of BigML around predictive analytics. I mean, it seems really straightforward how you can leverage this for AKQA. What were you doing before BigML? Were you doing predictive analytics? I mean, was there a way you could even do predictive analytics like this prior to using BigML? What changes that made in your kind of day-to-day?
So I had toyed around with predictive analytics by learning various languages, Python, R, and had some success at building basic models. With BigML, what I've done is cut out all of that training time and learning time to all of the languages and the nuances of syntax, and I'm able to deploy models right with the colleagues that I work with and take action off of them without having to learn the syntax. It has enabled me and saved me a lot of time within the organization and enabled me to apply it to more and more client work.
Wow. So I just have a follow-up question on that. I need to make sure I heard that right. So, you had played with statistical analysis, tools like R and building in predictive analytic models, leveraging, languages like Python or other things like that. But in terms of putting predictive analytics to work for AKQA, right, BigML allowed you to bypass that learning curve, leverage real data and real machine learning. And then the quote there, I just want to make sure that I got that right, was it wasn't about learning it yourself. It was about getting it down really quickly and then actually collaborating with coworkers and other parts of the organization to spin them up using predictive analytics. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. It's really hard to do any kind of training on the job, as I'm sure every analyst knows. And I've spent a good chunk of weekends, learning and grinding. That's the passion that drives me. But now with BigML, I'm able to just deploy models left and right on new data sets and find out more and more interesting things and provide insights that were previously unattainable to my colleagues.
That's fantastic. There's another question that has come in, and it's specific to the work you do inside AKQA, and it was about the data set that you were using. Let me read this off, make sure I get it right. So the findings you had in this example with the brand that you're working with, it seems like from the discoveries in BigML, the survey that would change the way in which you as an organization would go and point your media, as in you wouldn't need to ask as many questions in a survey, or you could actually tailor your response. Is that accurate? Is that question outlining the effect that BigML had on how you went to market for this brand?
Definitely. So we had a long survey for this particular brand, which has a higher cost than perhaps a one-question survey that we've run also. So we've used BigML findings to find the highly correlative nature and the high predictable nature of other metrics in terms of predicting purchase intent. So we can now ask that single question as opposed to a long survey, and we can run with partners that maybe previously we couldn't before and get some insight.
And just again, I work in the software industry and I work in marketing, so I kind of understand the survey component. But when we're talking about big brand media surveys, a 1-question survey or a 3-question survey versus like a 20-question survey, that's not just easier for the respondents, which is honestly a big deal, but that's actually a huge chunk of money that no longer needs to be spent. Is that correct? Like you're literally saving money with this decision?
Definitely. We have a cheaper cost to serving 1 question than we do our long form, and then there's less internal setup time, so there's a internal time savings. So a lot of cost savings across the board.
That's, yeah, I mean, yeah, you save money in a lot of different ways. You save it in time, you save it in expenses, you save it in overhead. That's fantastic. Another question that kind of actually dovetails into that, and I think this one's more pointed towards Andrew, clearly on the creative media side and the survey response side and the ability to make those decision tree notes, that use case, G Scott detailed that very well. The question was specifically around, there was a slide that talked a little bit about HR examples or other things like that. Andrew, additional areas where this gets used outside of the creative space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about machine learning is that it literally can be applied to just about any business problem. In that slide, we talked about different use cases. So HR is actually one segment where we're seeing a lot of interest. HR is an area that's been traditionally underserved with IT budgets and analytics. And BigML's ease of use is a natural fit there. So on the HR side, just to delve into this particular area, we're seeing people use BigML for turnover modeling, right? When's an employee going to leave and why will they leave the company? Also, through the incorporation of our text analytics, it's a really good fit for resume matching and job placement recommendations. In fact, I think that the text analytics aspect of BigML is one of our very unique aspects, the ability to have text fields processed side by side with numeric fields, side by side with categorical fields and date time fields, really can give someone a very comprehensive view of all their data points and the predicted outcomes therein.
Fantastic. A question around from the audience around the ability for BigML to do text or sentiment analytics. I know especially in social media, being able to gauge sentiment or be able to parse some of that is really a hot topic right now. Does BigML kind of play in that arena at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I just touched on, text analysis is one of our fortes. We have many clients actually taking their Twitter feeds and analyzing, what particular content is leading to tweets, retweets, favorites, or similar actions. So as that's a growing space in marketing and in the industry in general, we think we have a very good fit there.
Got it. A question about learning BigML. Obviously, Tableau and BigML make a lot of sense in the terms of you put that data explorer and predictive capability in the hands of the data user, right? There's a creativity and a domain expertise that come with handing these tools to someone like G Scott as opposed to someone in an IT team that knows how to solve the problem by using the software, but they don't actually know what the larger business problem might be. A question around do you have to be a statistician in order to use BigML? And G Scott, I know you spoke to having played with R and Python and some other stats models in working with your coworkers. What is the required background to effectively use BigML that you found?
What's beautiful is that you don't need to have a huge statistical background. You would want to know a little bit more about decision trees and make sure that it's the right model for you. But after that, the deployment and implementation and running a model is seamless. And many people who never thought they would ever learn a Python or an R or any type of machine learning have used this on client work and been able to present their findings.
Yeah. Dustin, if I could add to that, yeah, I think
absolutely.
G Scott hit it on the nose. It's very what's the saying? It's very easy to make something hard, but it's very hard to make something difficult easy, or something like that, right? So the challenge with BigML is actually, abstracting the complexity of machine learning and the super intuitive interface that we have. In fact, our platform is developed starting with the API and then brought to the interface over time. BigML is meant to be able to be utilized by business users and technical users alike. So any marketing analyst, data user can quickly come up to speed on BigML. By the same token, G Scott mentioned the fact that all the models are fully actionable. So we have bindings in several languages, Python, Java, Ruby, Node.js, etc. And more technical users can access all of that by command line. And we also have a high-level command line tool called BigMLer. So application developers can really get a lot out of BigML and start actually, building programmatic applications and services using the underlying predictive logic. One other important thing about BigML is that the workflow actually can be segmented across different users in an organization. So whereas a data scientist or a model builder can actually build a model, you can actually segment it so that less technical users are just running predictions against the model, and they don't have to worry about the underlying model building whatsoever.
That's a really good point, Andrew, and I'm glad you brought that up because I feel there's a lot of similarities there with Tableau in the sense that we want to empower the everyday person to be powerful, but in the same way with machine learning, right? As is with all things related to data, you need to be responsible, and you need to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence as a good analyst to know that you can make the numbers say whatever they want to say. It's not hard to influence numbers, and so it's important that because a tool is easy, right, and the spin-up time might be low, you still have to be knowledgeable in the case of BigML and decision trees, right? In the case of Tableau, right, using our forecasting capabilities, right, the little right-click stuff we have in there. And so that point about saying, if you come to the table as a data scientist, or in Tableau's world, like if you come to the table and you are heavy-duty database, admin, and you can just, you dream SQL queries or something like that, you can absolutely play a central, and integral role in the data analysis process and in the predictive process, and that there's a hierarchy that can exist. It doesn't need to, but you can absolutely play a role of, I do this, but the rest of my team plays an equally important role, whether it be running decision trees, right? Whether it be running models that have already been pre-created, whether it be on the Tableau side, taking those models that BigML has been created, they've been centralized using data server, and Tableau desktop users are just creating based on models that have already been built and created, and that metadata is secure, right? The beautiful thing about it is whether you're a one-man army or one-person army just going to town with BigML and Tableau, and you've got the chops like G Scott to really do it, and more importantly, the passion and the time, right? Or whether you need to sit at kind of the head of that and then empower 500 people inside your organization to make sure things are secure and everything's centralized, but they still have full breadth and capability to discover things in data, right? That is one of the beautiful things about the integration between BigML and Tableau, is that both of those paradigms are kind of right in lockstep, and I love that. Let's see, we got some other questions that have come in. Let's see here. I think this one I'm going to ask G Scott first, but Andrew, I would love to hear your take on this one too. Tableau, we talk about the aha moment where we're doing something with Tableau for the first time. Your brain kind of just goes, oh, not just, hey, that was easy, but this is an entirely different way of doing things, and it's a game changer for how I'm going to work with data. So G Scott, for you, was there an aha moment that you had using Tableau and BigML, something that happened for the first time where you were just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a big deal for us?
Well, you kind of hit it right on the head, both with Tableau and BigML. The first instances that I got my hands on it and played around with it for 15, 30 minutes, I already knew that it was a game changer for both. Tableau to visualize data and like crunch and analyze information really quickly. BigML, with the hot talk about predictive modeling and predictive analytics, this just kind of brings it right to my hands without having to worry about syntax, without having to worry about languages, and being able to deploy it with just a few clicks. The integration has been amazing, and really looking forward to applying the model to data sets where we get more and more incremental data on more frequent bases. Right now, this was just 1 quarter's worth of data, but with other data sets, what I'm able to do is bring in information from the previous month and for the next week predict that outcome.
Very cool. Andrew, what about you? I'd love to hear your perspective on that kind of like, wow, sitting at the other end of that integration, like this could be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of aha moments when you use those tools. As far as integration goes, I think that giving Tableau users the ability to add predictive analytics into their Tableau environment without having to learn R or do a lot of more complicated steps we've received very positive feedback on that from all sorts of users. Also, within the BigML environment itself, I think that as G Scott mentioned, you can use a machine learning platform both to build predictions, but also to gain insight into your data. And it's a lot of fun, working with users who are kind of walking through their decision trees, who start finding all these interdependencies between their data points that they just didn't know existed. And some of that's visualized through the model summary report that G Scott showed, but some of it's just kind of by actually working through the tree, and it's fully interactive and has real-time visualizations. It gives people a lot of constant ahas that aren't just insightful, but also fully actionable, that they could actually bring those into their ongoing business processes.
That's fantastic. G Scott, here's one for you, and then Andrew, you and I are probably going to take a shot at this one too. But the question is, how can you use tools like BigML and Tableau to show a business that analytics can help make, a more successful overall organization? I mean, maybe let me restate the question. G Scott, if you weren't using BigML today, but you were as familiar as you are with it today, how would you go to AKQA and say, we should be using this? Here's what it's going to do for us. How would you justify that value?
Well, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's just the time invested, and to be able to scale across people who may not have the time to learn the tools to get the custom models, be it in R or others. So instead of me investing, hours upon hours to learn a tool, I can now just run BigML and output models to use on client work, and spend that time that I saved learning to actually applying the model and applying the learnings to client work and benefit them as well.
Awesome. And Andrew, I'd love to hear your position on this statement as well.
Yeah, and I think, we're somewhat preaching to the choir here. I think that every business should be making data-driven decisions. And tools like Tableau and BigML make that easier to do. As I mentioned before, machine learning can be applied to virtually every aspect of a company's operations. And being able to use predictive analytics gives you some empirical data points to make better decisions. One thing we do is in the BigML environment, you can make predictions against BigML. We also have, G Scott mentioned briefly, we have the ability to very quickly evaluate your models, right? And so through the evaluation feature, you can see exactly how well your model is performing versus kind of mode-based or random-based decisions. So you can see empirically the uplift that you're getting in using predictive analytics versus just kind of using your gut, which is how people have largely done business in the past.
100%. I'm going to jump on that bandwagon so fast. I agree with you guys 100%, and agreed also that, right, kind of sticking your finger up in the air and being like, which way is the wind blowing? I mean, I feel like despite what a lot of organizations think, there's so many critical decisions, whether you're trying to do sales forecasting or whether you're trying to understand lead flow or you're trying to understand media campaigns or survey response. I mean, right, give me a situation, HR, right, that example, Andrew, that you talked about in the HR scenario, understanding, especially in larger organizations, right, ebb and flow of when people leave and why. What are the given points at where good talent goes and where it comes from? How do we recruit better? How do we do more effective boomerang hiring? That's something that I've actually run across in a predictive analytics scenario. And I love this concept of, if you can put the power of tools like BigML and Tableau in the hands of smart data workers, it's just, it's like peanut butter and jelly time. It's just, like, they go hand in hand together, and you give someone inside, I use this phrase a lot, the 60-minute slugfest of, you're lucky to get an hour free in your day to do something other than the 500, fire alarms that get pulled in any given day of our jobs. But that 60 minutes to sit down and actually do a data project, right? And how much Excel can you really get through? How many VLOOKUPs can you really get through, right? How much SAS can you actually, get through with X amount of training in an hour, right? And the answer is usually, well, you'll get something done, or at least you get something started, but then you have to try and pick it up, and then it's a week later, and you have to redo some stuff because you have to bring in the, right, we've all been in that scenario. And so I talked about this concept of the 60-minute slugfest, and I love that, G Scott, the living example of this, just did it for us. He's like, I can get some data, I can run predictive, I can leverage machine learning in the cloud, which again, I love that we're talking about machine learning here in predictive, because I think of that as, a situation where scientists are sitting in a room with giant computers and they're crunching numbers and they're spitting out stuff, and it's something that is wholly unapproachable to me, an average data worker. But yet G Scott just showed us, yeah, I just did this thing. I uploaded some data and I got a really nice little predictive understanding of some key data breaks in here, and then I'm going to bring that into Tableau. And if I can do all of that, and he did it in less than 20 minutes, right? If you can do that, right, imagine the iterations you could do inside of a meeting, or imagine if you could run that process twice, because I say 60 minutes, but really I mean 50, right, because it takes 5 minutes to get out of a meeting, and you spend the 5 minutes before going to a meeting trying to remember what you're supposed to do in that meeting. But anyway, right, inside of 50 minutes, how far can you get on a data project? And if you could run 2 iterations of a full data project inside of 50 minutes, right, the whole iterative cycle of data. And we call it the iterative cycle of data visualization, but when you pair it up with the, an amazing solution like BigML, it's really the iterative overall data cycle of what is this data? How does it break down? I'm going to leverage the BigML platform to show me things that I never would have been able to understand, or logics that I never would have been able to apply given my background, and then I'm going to bring it into Tableau, and I'm going to discover new things. I'm also going to be able to share it with and collaborate with other coworkers. And if I can do that iteration a bunch of times, and I can make a bunch of mistakes, and it leads to more questions, suddenly those meetings are not just, hey, come back next week with this different data. Those meetings are, oh, well, that's the answer? Well, what's the next question? Well, what's the next question? What's the next question? Anyway, I get on my high horse about this because I love it so much, and I think it's incredibly powerful, but that's my entire perspective on how powerful that can be together. I think we're coming up on the end of the hour here. Let me see if we've got any hot burning questions. We've already talked about, you don't need to be a heavy-duty statistician. You need to be knowledgeable about certain things. But, you absolutely, it's not like you have to bring a PhD to the table. And the same goes for Tableau, right? Be a smart data worker, understand how to use data, but there's, you don't need to be the SQL genius. I do select star, and that's about as far as my SQL queries go. I think that is the majority of our questions. There are some questions we're going to follow up, I think, offline on, just real specific questions around engaging with BigML and Tableau. I want to thank everyone for coming today. There's some additional Tableau resources up on the site as well, and please, please, please go to the BigML site and engage with them. And excuse me, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong. A trial version for BigML or engaging in a trial account, that's something that is recommended for sure, correct?
Yeah, anyone you can use BigML for in perpetuity for free for data sets up to 16 megabytes.
Oh wow!
I'm pretty sure we're the only platform on the market that allows you to do it. You can get started within minutes. So yeah, please do visit the site. We have a ton of training resources, technical information, developer information, and then we also have a weekly machine learning hangout where you can chat with the team and bring your machine learning challenges and work on them in real time.
That's fantastic. Well, I know what I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes doing. That's an easy decision. Outstanding. Well, I think what I'll go ahead and do is, speaking of the 60-minute slugfest, is I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes back in their day. But G Scott and Andrew, thank you so much for attending today, and to our audience members, thank you so much for attending, and thank you for giving us your time. I hope this webinar has been extremely helpful. For those that who weren't able to attend the webinar but would like to see a recording of it, let everyone know that we are going to send out the link to that, and so you are more than welcome to forward that on, and we want lots of people to see what G Scott did today. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.